But today's story is about a hacker who was an undercover agent for the FBI, and yet this same hacker scammed the FBI and betrayed it in a way they could never forget. This hacker was so clever and cunning that about 7 years later he himself called the FBI to tell them about the fraud, and when the truth came out, their minds were blown. This story will also show us how dangerous a hacker can be and how far he can go, and he did all this not without reason. Behind it was a story that exposed the truth about the FBI. The story begins on February 10, 2005, when an agent at the FBI headquarters in Washington sat at his computer and opened an email attachment, and as soon as he saw that attachment, his face went pale. The agent was looking at something he had never seen before, and the attachment contained the names of the criminals the FBI was targeting. It listed the real names and their code names of all the undercover agents and which hackers were working with the FBI. All that intelligence had been exposed in that email attachment. Scrolling down, over 11 pages were written about all the FBI undercover operations, and it was all information stolen from the FBI's own server. Seeing this, every agent present was stunned, and behind it was a 20-year-old boy who worked for the FBI. Now the biggest question arises: how did a mere 20-year-old fool the most powerful investigative agency in the world, and what was the reason behind it? To move forward in the story, we must go back 4 years. On January 19, 2001, a 20-year-old Ukrainian boy boarded a plane at Heathrow Airport to go to America. All he could think about was starting a business in America and achieving great success, but he was unaware that 7 hours later he would be in handcuffs. This boy's name was Maxim Pop, and he sat nervously in his seat, with 2 FBI agents sitting behind him who were traveling to America with him. The day before boarding the plane, Pop had gone to the U.S. Embassy in London, where he signed a deal in exchange for giving the FBI information about Eastern European hackers and their hacking. They would give him American nationality. Pop had been negotiating this deal for the previous 4 months, information about hackers in return for a new identity and funding to start his business. In any case, the FBI agents accepted his terms and took him to America. But what happened next changed both Pop's and the FBI's world. As soon as the plane landed and Pop stepped onto American soil, the 2 FBI agents immediately arrested him. The same FBI agents who had been smiling on the plane were now stern with him, and Pop realized he had been deceived. He would not receive an American passport nor funding. After being handcuffed, he was put into a jail cell, and a paper was slipped under the cell door that said, "Either you work for us or rot in this prison for 30 years. The FBI thought they had caught Pop very easily because he was willing to work for them, and since Pop himself was a hacker, the FBI had no idea what was coming. For the next 3 months, Pop was taken every morning at 8 from the Virginia safe house to a military facility where he logged into Russian hacker forums. During this time, the FBI agents constantly monitored him and recorded him, and they believed he was gathering information about hackers. But what was about to happen would cost them dearly. Pop typed some code on the screen in Russian that the FBI agents could not understand. It was a message to his old comrades. In Russian, the code message read, "Data Sam, Smot," which meant Uncle Sam is watching. American authorities are looking for hackers, and with this message, he alerted every underground hacker to beware. 3 months passed this way, and the FBI did not catch a single hacker. And when the FBI had the chats translated, they were furious. One agent even threw his chair in anger because the hacker who was supposed to be working for them had been deceiving them from day one. They removed Pop from the safe house and put him back into a jail cell. When the cell door closed, Pop neither shouted nor cried. Instead, he smiled and told the FBI agent, "You have no idea who you are dealing with." While the FBI agents believed their entire plan had collapsed, 2,400 kilometers away in California, an FBI agent named E.J. Hilbert saw an opportunity. Hilbert had been trailing Eastern European hackers for 3 years, and he knew very well that to catch one thief, you sometimes needed another thief, and that second thief was Pop. Hilbert had 2 questions. First, could they trust a hacker who had already deceived? Second, was it right to bring a fraudster into their fold? In the summer of 2002, Hilbert made Pop an offer help the FBI catch the world's largest cybercrime forum, and in return they would release him. This time Pop had to do all his work from inside the jail cell, and the operation was named End City. It was a brilliant plan that aimed to target the cybercrime forum, where nearly 10,000 hackers gathered. On these forums, people bought and sold personal information. It was called the Amazon of identity trade. Credit card information sold for as little as $1, while social security numbers to whole family dossiers. Pop's job was to target the hackers who were selling such information, and for that he had to pose as a big buyer. Hilbert authorized Pop a budget of $500, and Pop's only task was to buy as much information as possible from these hackers. Every purchase by Pop was a trap being set for those hackers, and when the hackers shipped stolen credit cards to Pop, Hilbert would use the parcel trail to reach the source that had been hacked. One parcel led the agent to a hotel chain where data from 500 customers had been stolen, and another parcel led to a departmental store that had been stealing customer data and credit card details for the previous 6 months. It was a brilliant plan that was working, but later it would become personal. Some time passed and then Thanksgiving 2002 arrived. While most American families were sitting together and celebrating Thanksgiving dinner, Pop sat in the FBI conference room, sad and lonely. He thought he had no one in this world when the door opened, and Agent Hilbert entered carrying a parcel with chicken, a whole Thanksgiving meal, and Pop's eyes filled with tears. After placing the food on the table, Hilbert did something he had never done before. He started the projector and played the movie The Lord of the Rings. For the next 3 hours, Pop and Hilbert did not talk about catching hackers or crimes. They just ate and enjoyed the movie. That moment changed everything for Pop because it was the first time since arriving in America that someone had treated him like a human being. And that night he decided he would fully help Hilbert catch cyber criminals. The cyber forum's name was Carter Planet, and its mastermind was known as Script, someone whose real name and location were unknown. Script personally handled the big deals on Carter Planet, and reaching him was essential to dismantling the whole forum. Pop spent the next 6 weeks on the cyber forum, where he introduced himself as a Ukrainian and claimed to have connections with corrupt bank employees. Finally, Script agreed to sell Pop some credit card data, and nearly $400 worth of credit card information was sent to Pop's address. This parcel was opened by Agent Hilbert himself, and inside were 200 credit cards whose information had been stolen just 72 hours earlier. But during this deal, Script made a major mistake. Inside the parcel, he left a handwritten note, signed in his own handwriting. Hilbert ran that handwriting through an international database, and from it came his first big success. He found out that Script was a Roman Vega, living in Odessa. 6 months later, the Ukrainian police knocked at Script's door, arrested him, and sent him to jail for 6 months. And that arrest sent a message to the entire hacker underworld that anyone could be caught. By April 2003, the FBI had prevented $70,000 in credit card fraud just through the End City operation. But one question kept troubling them. Could Pop be trusted to remain honest? After all, he was also a criminal. What followed would be beyond the FBI's wildest expectations. In June 2003, about 8 billion credit card numbers were stolen. This was not a typing error. The number was so huge the FBI was stunned. At this time, someone messaged Pop on his laptop claiming to be Race, saying he knew who had stolen the cards and that he could give all that data if Pop was interested. Race was a 21-year-old who lived with his mother in St. Petersburg, and dealing with Pop would prove to be his biggest mistake. Race thought he was dealing with a criminal hacker, but in reality, he was dealing with an undercover FBI hacker. The suspicion started when Pop told Race he wanted to buy credit card data worth $200,000. The amount mentioned to convince Race that Pop was a genuine buyer. Race found it odd that a small-time hacker would want such a huge purchase, and Pop had to prove he was a real buyer. What happened next was like a movie scene because the FBI and Pop together set a trap in which Race easily fell. Agent Hilbert took Pop to the Bank of America vault where a table was covered with stacks of cash, and Pop sat at that table. The agents began stacking the bundles of notes and Pop practiced his lines, what to say to Race. Soon after, the camera is started and Pop is filmed holding dollar bills in his hands with stacks of notes beside him. In this video recording, Pop is showing the watermarks and security threads of the dollar bills and saying that all these notes are completely genuine, and he is turning the notes up and down to show them. This entire video was made to be 47 seconds long, after which it was sent to Resk over the internet, and he became convinced that Pop was a genuine buyer. Because Pop was also known by Resk by his real name, he even registered a fake credit card manufacturing company and said it needed a security consultant. Pop created a website and email ID in the name of this company and even wrote fake employee bios on the website so that everything would look absolutely real. During conversations with Resk, Pop said that he would sell him the cards, but that they would also need a security consultant, and the salary would be. Hearing this, Resk fell into Pop's trap and he wrote a resume in which he included his real name, address and passport detail. The FBI watched all this while sitting there, and they were laughing because Resk was writing a resume for their sting operation, and within just 72 hours an Interpol red notice was issued in the name of Resk. That is, within just a week Resk, also known as Dennis, was arrested, and during this time Pop began to feel that he was not just catching criminals for the FBI, but had become their biggest asset, and in 2 weeks he would be released from jail. Pop was presented in court for trial. The judge, taking into account the undercover operations he had carried out in the previous 8 months, released him. Finally, Pop was released, after which the FBI provided him with a place to live and fixed $1,000 per month for him, which clearly meant that Pop was now working on the FBI payroll. The FBI thought they had bought Pop, but they were unaware that after all he was still a criminal, and from here the story takes the turn the FBI could never forget. In 2004, at the FBI headquarters, a New Year's party was underway when at 11:47 p.m., Agent Hilbert's phone rang. On the other end was Pop's voice, and he told Hilbert to check his email. As soon as Agent Hilbert opened his email, he was stunned. The mail said that the FBI had been hacked, and this was no small hack, because all of the FBI's data access had come into one person's hand. This data had been hacked from the FBI.gov website. There was another reason the website had been hacked. The website was running on the X25 network, an old technology from no one had updated it because nobody even knew this technology still existed, and Pop knew that. In any case, Pop told Hilbert he could fix the problem, but they would have to pay him for it. The email attachment that Pop had sent Hilbert contained an 11-page case information file about a criminal boss whom the FBI was going to arrest. Moving further, Hilbert found a 7-page Excel sheet that contained intelligence on every hacker and agent working for the FBI, as well as details of every hacker the FBI was about to catch. Each page of this sheet clearly stated that this data should not be transferred to the internet, because it had been hacked directly from the FBI.gov email server. Within the next 6 hours, Hilbert was on a flight to Washington, and within 12 hours he stood before the FBI director. The director asked Hilbert how the hack had happened, and Hilbert had no answer. But he did say that one of his undercover hackers would fix it, for which he would take. The Bureau then issued a $10,000 check in Pop's name, and this was the first time in FBI history that they had given money to someone who had been released from jail to help them. Pop identified the hacker who had hacked the FBI's website. His name was Lanit Swalov, who lived in St. Petersburg, Russia. Meanwhile, Hilbert watched that hacker's chat from another computer, in which the hacker explained how he had hacked the FBI's website and also said that he possessed a lot of FBI intelligence that he would sell for money. This was an easy confession any criminal might make, and Hilbert had never seen anything like it before. But because he had to protect the FBI's intelligence, he did not ask Pop any question. Once the hacker's name emerged, Interpol put him on its wanted list, and Pop clearly showed on his website that he was now working for the FBI as a security consultant. On the surface, this all looked good and straightforward, but the truth was very different. And then came February 10th, when the whole truth came before the FBI. That was the day Hilbert realized that the very man who had saved the FBI would be the one to destroy it. And he understood this when he found out that Pop had taken all the stolen information to Fortune. To investigate the matter, the FBI held a meeting with 5 FBI agents in a room, and their landline phone on speaker. On that call, the FBI director asked, "Who is Dennis Pinhas?" And all the FBI agents looked at Hilbert. Hilbert had only 5 seconds to think, and because that was Pop's real name, he had only 2 options: either save his undercover asset, or save his job. Pop had used that name to contact a company called the MC Corporation,
and offered to sell them VM software for $50 million. The very software through which the FBI's intelligence had been stolen. Hearing this, EMC Corporation immediately called the FBI's Boston office, and that is how the FBI discovered that their own undercover hacker was working against them. In that meeting, the FBI chief repeatedly urged Hilbert to reveal his undercover hacker's real name. And Hilbert had only two paths: either expose Pop and ruin all his operations, or protect Pop and lose his job. After much thought, Hilbert decided that he would not let Pop's name come out at any cost, because exposing him would endanger national security. Although Hilbert knew that Pop had deceived the FBI, another truth remained. With Pop's help, he had caught many hackers. 72 hours after Hilbert refused, a conspiracy and fraud investigation against him began, during which his computer was seized and all his files and phone records were scrutinized. The man who had once been the hero of an anti-operation had now become its villain, and Hilbert kept asking himself over and over why he had trusted the wrong man. Meanwhile, in Ukraine, Pop sold this software to another company, for which he received initially and the remaining $400 later, if he did not sell the software to someone else. Using this software, Pop had also stolen data from Fortune 500 companies, and he was now taking money from those same companies to keep their data safe. EMC Corporation had also paid Pop to protect their data, but they did not tell the FBI because everyone was lying to everyone else. And the price paid was borne by just one man, Hilbert. In August 2006, Hilbert Sr. called him into the office and told him that the promotion he had worked for 8 years to obtain had been rejected. Over the next several months, Hilbert watched his career slowly sink, and finally exhausted, he placed his badge and his concierge desk on the table and resigned. 15 years of Hilbert's service were lost because of a Ukrainian hacker named Pop, whom he had helped and he deeply regretted. In the investigation against Hilbert, nothing was found, and eventually in 2009, all charges against him were dropped because he had already left the FBI. After that, he worked as a private security consultant, but one question always troubled him: why had Pop done this to him? Nearly 7 years had passed without any contact between Hilbert and Pop. And then Hilbert received a call. The number on Hilbert's phone was a Ukrainian number, and when he answered, he recognized the voice on the other end. It was Pop, who called to thank Hilbert for his support and to thank him for that Thanksgiving dinner. Pop's voice had changed somewhat, and he told Hilbert that Hilbert was the only person who had treated him like a human and that he considered him a friend. Hearing this, Hilbert's eyes filled with tears, but by then it was too late, and the two talked continuously for almost 3 hours. During the conversation, Pop told him that he was now married and he apologized for what he had done. But then he said something that shook Hilbert to the core. Pop told Hilbert that he himself was the one who had hacked all of the FBI's data. Silence fell on the other end of the line. Hilbert's mind raced through the previous 7 years, and every clue he had ignored came back to him. As they talked, Pop also revealed that Lanet was his man, and that the two of them had hacked the FBI together. Pop also said that after the hacking, he had taken it from the FBI to fix it, and Lanet had confessed to the hacking so that everyone would believe it, and Pop himself had paid him to do so. It is remarkable that the FBI had paid the very man who had hacked them so he could be caught, and that was impossible to believe. Because of Pop's fraud, the FBI ruined the career of one of its best agents, and Hilbert paid a very high price to protect Pop. On the call, Pop asked Hilbert if he had ever suspected him, to which Hilbert replied that he had. But then he had felt Pop had changed and his suspicion had eased. Hilbert was a good man, who had seen potential in Pop and wanted to save him. But Pop took advantage of that moment and trapped Hilbert. Before disconnecting, Pop told Hilbert one last thing: that he respected him greatly and would always remember him. And then the call ended. Pop is still running his security consulting firm in Ukraine, and he was never arrested, never extradited, and never punished. In the end, the FBI shut down the end operation forever, and this case served as a warning to everyone. If you use thieves to catch thieves, the damage will be yours. Tell me in the comments how you liked this story. Like and subscribe to the channel. See you in the next video.